Passengers stepped off one by one, farmers, peddlers, a traveling preacher, but no one caught the town's attention the way she did. A young woman, small bag in hand, dress worn from long travel, eyes sharp yet shadowed, stepped down slowly. Her movements were cautious, as though she expected someone to shout her name or drag her away. Her name, or at least the one she gave, was Lydia Rae, but the truth was, Lydia Rae wasn't her real name at all. She kept her head low as she walked across the dusty street. Every sound made her flinch: the slam of the saloon doors, the clink of a horseshoe on stone, even the distant laughter of cowboys playing cards behind the hotel. She wasn't new to running, but she was new to running this far. A stable boy pointed her toward the ranch she'd heard whispers about. The Harlan Ranch, sitting just outside town. People said the Harlan brothers were always short of hands. People also said one brother was kind and quiet, and the other was the kind of man trouble followed. Lydia didn't care who she met. She needed work. She needed a place to disappear. She needed distance from the life she had been forced to abandon. Her footsteps left small prints in the dry dirt as she approached the ranch gate. She hesitated only once before walking in. Inside, the yard stretched wide, horses pacing the corral, cattle moving lazily near the fence, a barking dog circling a hay wagon, and two men, brothers, stacking feed sacks near the barn. One wiped sweat from his brow, tall, broad-shouldered, hair sun-bleached. The other leaned on a pitchfork, watching her approach with sharp eyes that missed nothing. The quiet one, Colton Harlan, spoke first. "You lost, miss?" Lydia had rehearsed her lie 100 times. "No, sir. I'm looking for work." Her voice didn't tremble, but she held her bag tightly, knuckles white. Colton studied her too thin arms, her hesitant step, her guarded expression. "What kind of work?" he asked. "Any kind," she replied quickly. "Kitchen, cleaning, mending clothes, hauling water. Anything honest." The older brother snorted. "Honest, huh?" His name was Mitch, and suspicion clung to him like dust to boots. "We don't usually hire strangers wandering in from nowhere," he said. Lydia's heart pounded, but she didn't let her fear show. "I ain't looking for charity, just a job." Colton's eyes softened. "We don't turn people away when they need help," he said quietly. Mitch shot him a glare. "That's your problem, Colton. You trust too fast." Lydia spoke up before the argument grew. "You have every right to mistrust me," she said, her voice steady. "But I'll pull my weight. I'll work harder than anyone. I don't want trouble. I only—" Her voice cracked ever so slightly. "Need a place I can stay a while." That crack was all Colton needed. He stepped toward her, stopping only a few feet away. His voice was low, gentle, but heavy with something deeper. "Ma'am." He hesitated, eyes searching hers with surprising clarity. "This ranch has been waiting for you." Lydia froze. She wasn't expecting kindness. She wasn't used to gentleness, and she certainly wasn't prepared for someone to say words that sounded like destiny. Mitch threw his hands up. "I give up," he muttered, walking to the barn. "You hire strays like she's a lost kitten. Don't come crying when she bites." Lydia's cheeks flushed with shame and frustration. "I'll stay out of his way," she murmured. Colton shook his head gently. "Mitch barks loud, but he don't bite much. He just had a rough past." "I think almost everyone does," Lydia replied softly. He noticed her eyes shift downward when she said it, like she was burying something heavy. He didn't ask, not yet. Colton walked her around the ranch. The bunkhouse, the chicken coop, the shed where laundry dried, the small room behind the kitchen she'd be allowed to sleep in. Lydia absorbed everything like a woman who didn't know how long she'd be allowed to stay. She washed dishes for an hour, fed the chickens, helped Colton move saddles in the tack room. Her movements were precise, careful, as if she'd spent a lifetime trying not to be noticed. Colton saw it. "You work like someone expecting to get yelled at," he said gently. Lydia froze, breath catching. "I've worked places where that happened," she answered quietly. He nodded, saying nothing more. But something inside him twisted at her words. Something protective. Something he hadn't felt since his mother died when he was a teenager. While Lydia hung laundry behind the house, Mitch approached her, arms folded. "You didn't tell us everything," he said. Lydia's heart shot into her throat. "I told you enough." Mitch's eyes narrowed. "You look over your shoulder too much. You flinch when someone slams a door. You got the wrong accent for the name you gave, and your bag ain't got enough clothes for someone with a home." Lydia swallowed hard. His voice dropped. "Who are you really?" She kept her face calm. "No one important." "That's not what it looks like." Lydia turned away, refusing to shake. If Mitch dug deeper, if anyone discovered her real identity, she'd have to run again, and she was tired of running. Before Mitch could continue, Colton appeared at her side. "Mitch," he said firmly, "leave her be." His brother glared. "You're letting your heart decide instead of your head, Colton." Colton didn't blink. "Maybe my heart knows something you don't." Mitch scoffed and stormed off. When he was gone, Colton looked at Lydia with apology written across his face. "Don't mind him," he said softly. "He's quick to judge." Lydia forced a faint smile. "I'm used to worse." Colton's eyes softened again, deeply, warmly. "Well," he said quietly, "you won't get worse here. I promise that." Her chest tightened. No promises had ever sounded so dangerous or safe. That evening, Lydia helped Colton gather eggs. The sun dipped low, painting the ranch in warm gold. "You ever lived on a ranch before?" Colton asked. "No." "You work like someone who knows ranch life." Lydia paused, hand hovering over a basket of eggs. "I learned fast." Colton studied her a moment longer. "That's not all," he said softly. "You walk like someone used to looking over their shoulder. But not because you did wrong. Because someone else did." Lydia blinked, shocked at how accurately he saw her. He stepped closer, not too close, just enough to show certainty. "I don't know your story," he said, "but I know this. You need a home. And this ranch, it's been waiting for you to breathe here." Lydia's throat tightened painfully. She fought tears. She never cried in front of anyone. "Thank you," she whispered. "Truly." Colton smiled gently. "You'll be all right here." But Lydia wasn't so sure, because she knew something she hadn't told either of the brothers. The man hunting her wasn't far behind. He always found her, always. She wasn't running from a stranger. She wasn't running from a mistake. She was running from a crime she never committed. And she didn't know how long she'd be safe here. But when she looked at Colton, quiet, steady, unexpectedly kind, for the first time in months, she hoped. Red Oak Ranch woke early, long before the sun rose. By the time the horizon glowed soft gold, Lydia had already swept the barn hallway, fed the chickens, and started boiling water in the kitchen. She worked like someone who needed her mind occupied, someone terrified of having time to think. Colton noticed. He always noticed. He entered the kitchen quietly, boots leaving soft prints across the wooden floor. You'll wear yourself out, he said. Lydia jumped slightly, dropping a wooden spoon. Sorry, she muttered, reaching for it. Old habit. You don't need to apologize for breathing, he said with a gentle smile. You did enough chores to cover 3 ranch hands before breakfast. Lydia tried to smile, but her eyes betrayed exhaustion, not from work, but from running. Colton leaned against the counter, crossing his arms thoughtfully. You sleep all right? He asked. Lydia hesitated. Yes, she lied. He didn't challenge her, though it was clear he knew the truth. After breakfast, Colton brought Lydia out to the corral where a group of horses grazed lazily. You ever saddle a horse before? He asked. No. Well, you're about to learn. He motioned her closer and handed her the bridle. His fingers brushed hers, brief, warm, and careful, as if he knew she wasn't used to gentle hands. She guided the reins over the horse's head while Colton watched proudly. You catch on quick. Lydia shrugged. I had to learn to do things fast where I came from. He tilted his head. Where did you come from? Her heart froze. Her hand slipped. The horse snorted at her tension. Lydia cleared her throat. East, a small town you wouldn't know. Colton stepped closer, lowering his voice. Lydia, you don't have to tell me everything. Not yet. But someday. When you're ready, you can. She nodded, swallowing hard. Colton didn't press further. He just took the lead rope from her and walked the horse toward the trough, motioning for her to follow. And she did. Because something about him, the way he moved, the way he spoke, the way he looked at her like she wasn't a problem, it made her want to trust him. But trust was a dangerous thing for someone who had been running for months. Around midday, Lydia carried linens to wash behind the bunkhouse. The sun pressed down, drying sweat on her brow. She set the bucket down and knelt beside the washboard. That's when she heard him. You're hiding something. She stiffened. Mitch Harlan stood behind her, arms crossed, eyes like sharp iron nails. You know how many people I've seen come through this ranch? Mitch asked. Enough to know when someone ain't who they say they are. Lydia kept washing, hands shaking only slightly. I'm not causing trouble, she murmured. That ain't what I asked. He stepped closer. You flinch when folks walk behind you. You sleep like you're waiting to run. You check the road 10 times a day as if someone might show up. Lydia's breathing hitched. Her hands froze mid-scrub. Mitch crouched beside her. What happened to you? He whispered. She swallowed hard. Nothing, she whispered. Please, just let me work. Mitch studied her face, the fear, the exhaustion, the desperate plea. He stood up slowly. You're trouble, he muttered, even if you don't mean to be. He walked away, leaving Lydia trembling by the wash bucket. For a long minute she sat frozen, gripping the wet fabric as if it could anchor her. He was right. She was trouble. Her past wasn't far behind, and it was only a matter of time before it caught up. Later that afternoon, Colton noticed Lydia hadn't come inside for lunch. He found her sitting behind the bunkhouse, back against the wall, staring at her hands. He approached slowly. Mitch say something? He asked gently. She shook her head. Just tired, she whispered. He knelt beside her. Lydia, you can trust me? The words struck her like a blow. Nobody says things like that and means it, she murmured. I do. She looked up at him. Colton's eyes weren't soft. They were steady. Steady in a way she'd never seen in a man. Steady like someone who didn't make promises lightly. She wanted to believe him. For the first time since she ran, she wanted to believe someone. But belief was dangerous. "You don't know who I really am," Lydia said quietly. "Then tell me." She opened her mouth, but footsteps interrupted them. A rider galloped into the ranch yard, dust cloud trailing behind. One of the ranch hands rushed out holding something, a wanted poster. He handed it to Colton. "Found this in town," the ranch hand said. Colton unfolded it. His face changed instantly. Cold, frozen, shocked. Lydia's blood turned to ice. He turned the poster around. Lydia's face stared back at her. "Lydia Rae wanted for murder. $500 reward." Her heart stopped. Her vision blurred. Colton looked at her, not with anger, but with pain. "Lydia," he whispered. Mitch burst from the barn, shouting, "I knew it! I told you she was trouble!" Lydia took a step back. "It's not true," she whispered, panic clawing her throat. Mitch scoffed. "You expect us to believe that?" Colton held up a hand to silence him. "Lydia," he said softly, voice trembling with conflict, "you need to tell me what happened." Lydia backed up until her spine hit the bunkhouse wall. Tears flooded her eyes. "I didn't kill anyone," she gasped. I swear I didn't." Mitch stormed forward. "You're a liar!" "Mitch!" Colton snapped. He grabbed Lydia gently. "Look at me," he said. She shook her head violently. "Colton, you don't understand. If they find me..." Who's looking for you?" Her lips trembled. "Marshal Riggs." Mitch's face dropped. Colton's eyes hardened. "That's a dangerous man," he said. "Why would he be after you?" Lydia finally broke. "I saw him kill a banker in cold blood. I saw everything. He saw me watching, and he said if I told anyone, he'd pin it on me." And he did. Colton listened, really listened, as she sobbed. "I ran because he wants me dead," she whispered, "because I'm the only person who knows what he really is." Mitch cursed under his breath. Colton wrapped a steady hand around Lydia's trembling arm. "You should have told me," he said softly. "You would have sent me away," she sobbed. Colton shook his head. "No, I would have protected you sooner." But Lydia wasn't listening anymore. Her eyes were fixed on the road leading to town. Her voice dropped to a fearful whisper. "He's coming. Marshal Riggs always finds me. And when he does, he kills anyone who helps me." Colton pulled her into his chest gently, something he had never dared before. "You're not alone anymore," he whispered. She wept into his shirt, fingers gripping him as if he were the only solid thing left in her collapsing world. Mitch stepped back, conflicted, but silent. The poster fluttered in his trembling hand. Colton looked at him over Lydia's head. "We protect her," he said. "Riggs doesn't take another thing from her." Mitch swallowed hard, then nodded once. Lydia looked up, eyes red. "Colton, I don't want you hurt." He wiped her cheek gently with his thumb. "You won't lose me," he whispered. Not to him, not to fear, not to anything. Her breath froze as he spoke the words that sealed her place in the ranch's fate. "Lydia, as long as you're here, you're mine to protect." Lydia broke down again, not in fear this time, but in the overwhelming shock that someone finally chose to fight for her. And from the far ridge, hidden by distance, a lone rider watched the ranch with burning eyes. Marshal Riggs had found her. Marshal Riggs rode into Red Oak territory like a man who believed the land belonged to him. His coat swung behind him, dust rising beneath the hooves of his stallion. The badge on his chest shone brightly, but his eyes were cold, like a man who'd never known the meaning of justice. He wasn't coming to arrest Lydia. He was coming to silence her. And he wasn't alone. 3 hired guns flanked him, rough men with scars, whiskey breath, and fingers itching to touch iron. They rode straight toward Harlan Ranch. Lydia watched from the porch, hands shaking as she pressed them together. Colton stood at the railing, one hand resting near his holster, the other out slightly in front of her, protective without touching. Mitch paced behind them, gripping his rifle tightly. 3 men with him, Mitch said, voice low. Maybe 4. Don't matter, Colton replied calmly. He ain't taking her. Lydia swallowed hard. This is my fault. If I leave, they'll leave you alone. Let me go. Please. Colton turned sharply, eyes burning with something deeper than anger. No, he said firmly. This ranch don't throw people to wolves. You stay here. But Colton, he took her hand, held it in front of everyone. You're not leaving. Not today. Not scared, not alone. Her breath stuttered. Mitch looked away, uncomfortable with the intimacy, but he didn't argue. The riders drew closer. You sure you want to do this? Mitch muttered. Colton didn't look back. I'd die before handing her over. Marshal Riggs halted his horse just feet from the porch. Well, well, he drawled slowly. I've been tracking a little thief across 4 counties. Turns out she's been hiding behind a skirt-chasing, soft-hearted ranch boy. Colton's jaw flexed. She ain't a thief, he said, and she ain't going anywhere with you. Riggs smirked. I don't need your permission, son. Lydia stepped forward impulsively. Riggs, please. Colton blocked her with his arm. Riggs caught the gesture and grinned darkly. Oh, I see. The girl's special to you. Makes this easier. I shoot you, the boys grab her, and this whole thing's done. Mitch stepped up on Colton's left. Try it, he growled. See how many steps you take before you hit dirt. The gunslingers behind Riggs shifted uneasily. They hadn't expected 2 armed brothers. But Riggs didn't flinch. Instead, he dismounted, slowly, deliberately, and pulled out a folded paper from inside his coat. He held it up. It was the same wanted poster Lydia had seen, but the back of it had writing. Colton hadn't seen that part before. Riggs flicked the paper toward the porch. It drifted through the air. Mitch caught it and read the back silently, his face twisted in shock. Then he handed it to Colton without a word. Colton read it. His eyes widened. His breath left him. His hands began to tremble. Lydia's stomach dropped. What is it? She asked weakly. Colton showed her. On the back of the wanted poster was a short message. The girl knows the truth. She must be killed. No signature, no explanation. Just a sentence that turned Lydia's blood to ice. Riggs clicked his tongue. Didn't think you'd see that, he said. But no matter. The girl witnessed something she shouldn't have. She don't get to keep living with what she knows. Colton stepped off the porch slowly, fury darkening his eyes. You murdered that banker. Riggs shrugged. He owed money to some powerful folks. I did what needed doing. She watched. That part wasn't planned. Colton clenched his fists. So you blamed her. Riggs grinned. The law listens to me. I say she's guilty, she's guilty. Lydia trembled violently. Everything she'd run from, every nightmare, every night she slept with one eye open, it all stood right in front of her wearing a badge. Riggs' voice dropped to a deadly whisper. Hand her over. Colton's voice matched the same quiet tone. No. What happened next was quick, violent, and loud. Riggs flicked his fingers. The gunmen drew. Mitch fired first. One man dropped instantly. Colton grabbed Lydia and pushed her behind a wagon while bullets thudded into the wooden boards. Another man charged from the left. Lydia sprang up unexpectedly, swinging a bucket hard into his jaw. The impact knocked him off balance long enough for Mitch to shoot his gun out of his hand. Colton fired at the last rider, grazing his shoulder and sending him scrambling for cover. Riggs fired at Colton. The bullet tore through Colton's sleeve, cutting flesh. "Colton!" Lydia screamed. "I'm fine," he yelled back. "Stay down!" Riggs reloaded. Colton dashed around the wagon, tackling him. The two men crashed into the dirt, fists swinging, guns kicked away. They rolled across the ground, wrestling for control. Riggs slammed Colton's head into the dirt. Colton elbowed him across the jaw. Riggs grabbed a knife. "You ain't dying easy, boy," he snarled. But Colton twisted, knocking the blade loose. A second later, Riggs drew a hidden derringer, small but deadly, and aimed straight for Colton's chest. "Goodbye, kid." Bang! But the bullet didn't hit Colton. Riggs stumbled backward, shock on his face. Behind him, rifle still raised, stood Mitch, breathing hard, hands shaking, eyes fierce. "My brother don't die today," he said through clenched teeth. Riggs collapsed in the dirt, lifeless. Silence sank over the ranch. Colton stood shaken, chest heaving, staring at Mitch in disbelief. You saved my life," he whispered. Mitch wiped sweat from his brow. "So maybe I ain't completely useless," he muttered. Colton laughed, a small, pained, grateful laugh. Lydia ran toward him, tears spilling. "Colton!" she cried, throwing her arms around him. I thought... "I'm all right," he whispered, holding her tight. "You're safe. That's all that matters." "No," she said fiercely, gripping his shirt. "You matter too." He cupped her cheek, thumb brushing away her tears. "You're safe now," he murmured. "No more running, no more fear." Mitch stepped forward, clearing his throat. "The boys'll testify," he said. "Whole town saw Riggs act strange. They know he bent the law to his will." Colton nodded. "Lydia's name will be cleared." Lydia pressed a trembling hand to her lips. "I don't know how to repay you," she whispered. Colton shook his head gently. "You don't repay family." Her breath caught. Family? He looked at her, really looked, with warmth, hope, and something deeper. "You came here looking for work," he said softly. "But this ranch, it wasn't looking for a worker." She swallowed. "What was it looking for?" He lifted her chin gently with 2 fingers. "You." Lydia burst into tears, not of fear, not of sorrow, but of release. Every wall she built crumbled, every fear loosened. Colton pulled her close, forehead resting against hers. "You belong here," he whispered. "With us. With me." She nodded, tears falling freely. "I want to stay," she whispered, "if you'll have me." Colton smiled, warm, certain, unshakable. "Ma'am," he said, voice thick with emotion, "this ranch has been waiting for you from the start." She let out a soft sob and buried herself in his arms. Behind them, Mitch rolled his eyes, muttering, "Well, ain't that something? Guess I'll be sharing this ranch with 2 lovesick fools now." But even he couldn't hide the tiny smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. By sundown, the bodies were removed, the sheriff notified, and half the town gathered to hear what happened. Lydia told her story. Colton stood beside her. Mitch backed her up. For the first time, people believed her. And when the new sheriff marked her record cleared, Lydia felt something she hadn't felt in years. Colton wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "Ready to go home?" he asked. She nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "For the first time, I know exactly where that is." Together they walked back toward the ranch, toward their future, toward the place that had been waiting for her all along.